Today on Legacy Event Pros, we talk to Jena Steinke about planning, when to plan, how to ask the questions and choose the right vendor, and things that you're probably missing when it comes to planning your wedding or your event. So we are joined by Jena today. Thank you very much from Blush and Bloom Weddings for being on our inaugural video podcast. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
So, planning a wedding. So, when we talk about the what's and ifs of Legacy Event Group, we do our very best to plan, but we don't hold a candle to a true wedding planner. So, first, how's things going? With COVID, with the pandemic, and planning. I mean, have you had to do things multiple times to get the same outcome? How's that working?
A couple. I think like anybody else in the industry, things are a little crazy, and with postponed weddings plus new weddings being booked this year, which we're so excited that things are moving forward and opening up. We're really looking forward to a crazy wedding season, but also taking the extra precautions, of course, with COVID and how can we keep guests safe, keep everybody healthy, and making sure everything's clean and sanitized. Taking all the proper precautions that we need to for each wedding.
Well, and proper precautions, that changes on a whim based on what the governor says that day.
Yeah, who knows?
Everybody was like on the corner of their seat there for a couple of weeks when it was like, is planning or is dancing going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Is social? And then they have this weird rule right now, and it's in April of 2021 about you can dance. It's okay if you can. We're not closing the dance floor, but you have to stay masked and stay 6 feet apart. How do you square that?
Right. You just socially dance.
So what kind of advice are you giving people who are planning a wedding now and into the future? Because there is a real fear about what comes next. There's a real fear about is the rules going to change tomorrow and my wedding can't happen or needs to happen in a way that I'm not happy about it. What advice do you give to people these days?
I always plan for today. We always look at things as to what's open today, how is everything running, and then as things open up, I don't want to say, well, what if or what if that. Let's just know what's going to happen. We don't know how things are going to open up and when they're going to open up. So we always just take precautions and, of course, do step by step. Like, how are we going to make a beautiful display of face masks and hand sanitizers right now? How will we seat our guests? And then, of course, if things happen that we open up more, then we have more flexibility and freedom. But for now, I want to plan for how things are going at the moment. My always tip is just, let's just keep going. Things seem to be going in a positive direction with the vaccinations and people feeling a little bit more comfortable now being out and at weddings and social events. So I always strongly suggest let's just keep moving forward with planning a wedding, whether it's this month, next year. Things are going great, and all the weddings we've done so far have been fantastic. And guests that are comfortable will kind of, flow as or sit who they want to sit by, and kind of mingle as they feel most comfortable.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when we talk about things changing and we talk about the things that you don't get, really that's a reality in everything that we do, even in regular weddings. I mean, the couple doesn't get everything they want.
No, and it's great because every vendor we all understand we want the best for every couple, so we're going to do what's best for the couple. and their wishes. We want to make sure everything's taken care of for them and hopefully bring to life everything that they're wanting for that day. I know, like, between all vendors, venues, we work as hard as we can to really do the best that we can with any restrictions that are given at that moment.
Yeah. How do you handle someone that wants something that they can't have? How do you handle someone who wants doves released when they get when they get married?
Yeah. We make it happen. We even if our hands are really tied and there's something that we just can't do because of any restrictions, we try to turn it around to find something else that's just as exciting or more fun. If you can't have doves, let's do butterflies. Let's do something, just as exciting, but it still brings that creativity together. But it might not be that exact thing, but we'll make something even more special to come to life for that.
I'm going to start
a good arrangement. Yeah.
I'm going to start out the inaugural podcast with something that might be a little controversial, but what we always say kind of internally is the person that can ruin your wedding the most is you. If you can't have something, and it's just not, it's something that is absolutely out of, like doves. I mean, obviously,
Right.
For the right price tag, I'm sure we can get a zoologist in here to release some doves or whatever. But but sometimes it's those little things that couples hold on to that end up being a big deal. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to a wedding, I mean, you guys have the biggest part to play in all this as far as bringing everybody together, but everything's, to have an absolutely perfect, absolutely flawless wedding. I don't think I've seen such a thing. I mean, there's always something. You just can't take it to heart, if you,
yeah. You got to kind of give a little. We want to hopefully bring every little together into life for you and for every couple. We want very important and special moments and details, and we want to bring that into their day, however we can. If we come across something that we can't do, or or something that we're just not able to make happen, then we definitely want to find something that's just as special to them that we can maybe let's do this instead of that, to really still make it special and personable for each couple.
I have I'm not going to name any names of any locations or anything like that, but there's a story in my mind where we were at a barn location, and you know how people will say, "I'm getting married in August. You think it's going to be hot?" Yeah, it's going to be hot. We're in Ohio. It's going to be something we have to deal with. But the location had fans, and the fans were unfortunately not working, and it would have completely ruined the day for some couples. And I walked. It had a multi-level, and I walked upstairs, and the bride was on the floor with all of her wedding party, and they had all, like, I don't want to say stripped down, but they had taken off everything that they could. They had like ice, and they made the best of it. And I that's really putting it into perspective for me when I thought it was hot. I mean, it was like 100 degrees. Yeah. It was hot. They're making it. They're doing it, and I love that.
We make it work. If we have to get up there and fan underneath the dress, we're going to get up there and cool somebody down. Yeah.
So what? We just talked about a couple of things that a planner is important for, but what would you say is the most important reason to hire a planner? I mean, I can think of 1,000 in the realm of entertainment and the things that we do, but why do you hire a planner? And I think it's a tough sell, to be honest, because I believe, no offense to Pinterest and people who love Pinterest, but I believe Pinterest has made people believe that they have more time a day. So why do you hire a planner?
And even with Pinterest, people get overwhelmed. I mean, I get overwhelmed with Pinterest. There's so many ideas and styles and things that you can do. So it's great to bring on a planner to really tie it all together. So we love that. We love the inspiration from Pinterest. When we first sit down with a couple, we want to know what's their style, what do they want their day to be like, and that's what Pinterest is great for, because then it gives us some ideas to really pull together for them, as far as like decor, colors, like their textures, everything. So then we get a better visual for, okay, this will be and that's great with the planners. Like, well, this is going to be a great vendor to work with. We really love this pop of floral. We know this is great with bold floral colors. Or even with a DJ, okay, do you want, like, what style of DJ do you want? Do you want a DJ and an MC? Do you want somebody that's really going to keep the night going and the party flowing? And that's what's nice. It's just knowing all the different vendors and styles that we can make those great suggestions as to what's best for them that we think, versus them, going through 100 different DJs, not knowing, and then ending up with somebody that, from personal experience, couldn't not run the night the best. But yeah, so it's just taking so much stress off of the planning process, knowing what's best, like who's going to be the best for the couple based on their needs, what they're looking for, their design, and then really, because there's a lot of pre-planning work that goes into it that brides don't have, just with research and budget and every little detail that goes into it. And not just that day of, but then when it comes to the day, we work our tails off to make sure that everything comes together into life, make sure that all the orders are incorrectly set up, vendors are taken care of. I can go on and on.
Go on and on, because I think people need to hear it. I really think they need to hear it.
It's fun. It's not the glamorous job that everybody thinks that it is, that we just sit back and give direction. We're actually in there doing the work, doing the setup, throwing linens, making sure your tables are if needed, making sure your vendors are taken care of as well, because you don't think about that. Who's going to take care of your vendors that day? And make sure they're plugged in, ready to go, or even the time leading up to it, we reach out to every vendor to make sure they're good. Do they know the venue? Do they know special photos or when the sunset is for photographers to get those great images? Every little detail we really comb through, and that's what that month before we really go into high gear of planning and covering every last detail with every couple. Yeah.
So I know you guys do day of planning, and when we we are very involved in planning also the entertainment side of things, not what you guys do, but when we are thrown into an event at the last minute, just inheriting other people's the lack of planning from other people. Do you have a nightmare story of getting thrown in the day of and expecting you to walk on water and resurrect?
We try not to. we try not to get in that situation but we make it work. If we come in, somebody just last minute, like we didn't realize we need help, we need you to pull us all together. So we scramble, we get all the vendor information, we collect all the details, the decor, and even there's days we've shown up expecting things to be set up and having vendors taken care of. They're doing our table decor, they're doing centerpieces, specific things, but then we've walked into buckets and buckets of decor and flowers, and they're like, have at it. Good luck, just do what you want. So, but again, we will make it work. We'll get it set up. And of course, we always check with the couple, make sure it's what they want, how they want the look. Yeah, it's a little bit more throw our hair up and just start working.
I know I have a 10-year-old boy, and we talk about how to motivate him sometimes. And, sometimes it's the carrot and sometimes it's the stick. And I feel like sometimes when you're talking to a client, you don't want to say, if you don't plan this, bad thing. You don't want to tell anybody that for their wedding. Like,
right.
You don't plan this, bad things will happen. But then on the other side, you don't want to sugarcoat things either and say, oh no, everything's wonderful. you don't have to do things. So
Right.
I can't imagine the day of planning just inheriting somebody else's, I won't say lack of planning, but
Right. So yeah, and I do. I let couples know up front. Really don't do a day of. Like people, like I just needed somebody to come in the last minute, day of, set it up. But we can't do that because there's no way. We need to be prepared. That's why we do we call it event management. Because really we come in and we oversee everything, and the pre-planning work that even goes into that is a lot of hours and time, as far as collecting all their details, their decor, their vendors, and we reach out to all the vendors to just ensure, okay, what are you covering? What are we doing? When are you coming? Anything special that we're needing for you guys? And then we help with those timelines, because down to every little detail, we include the DJ timeline, the photography timeline. So if we need to step in and help with anything, we can. I guess as far as like a sunset photo, or just to make sure that we're on the same page with the DJ as far as, okay, next is the cake cutting. Are we ready? Everything is set for that with the knife and make sure catering's ready to go. So really that point person to just bring everything together on that day. So in the bride, it's just a smooth transition for everybody.
Interesting. So you guys don't do purely day of. I didn't know that.
People will call it day of. However, like I said, we can't. It's hard to just come in that day. As you mentioned, I can't just not know any details or planning ahead of time. It takes work leading up to it to really just fully run the day smoothly and know exactly what's going on. So when people offer day of, I don't know how they just show up and do that.
Well, they don't do it very well. I could tell you that.
And that's just us. I want to be prepared. I want to know what's going on, and that vendors know that we are there to help them. And I think it takes a lot of stress off the bride too, leading up to the day, all the planning, just so that way they know, like, the catering's good, DJ's good, and I let them know. We check, hey, I've spoke with all your vendors. Everybody's ready to go. I have their arrival time. I have our contact information. And that just makes them feel even more at ease, knowing that everything's taken care of.
So, if your day of planning, what does that? How early is that? What does that look like as far as like what's your hard deadline? Like you cannot book us if you whatever. And then the flip side of that is how early should you book? Well, what's the golden time?
Right. Well, we don't ever want to put like a timeline on it. I mean, obviously, the earlier the better, so that way we have more time to bird and plan. However, if a bride comes to us, I don't know, a month or a couple weeks out, we can crazily crank out some work. We get right on it. We start to communicate. We have some details that we need to cover really quick, and then we knock it out. So I don't ever want to say I'm not going to be like, oh, you can't reach out to us if it's a week before, because we will still make it work. And then it's never too early. So I keep it's never too early, never too late to bring us on board. But I will say the earlier the better, just to give us some more time to prepare and be ready. And then that way we can also help with the planning process, because that's what we're good with, and help to make that fun.
So is there a sweet spot though? Because we have, like we met with a couple days ago that are getting married in November of 2020, 2022, sorry. Yeah. And so I feel like they're, I applauded them for planning so early, but I thought kind of in the back of my mind, like, well, there's no way that you can choose music because there's going to be, a year and a half of music. There's no way that you can. So I felt when I was talking to them, I was losing a little bit. So is there a, as far as when to book things and when to decide, do you have a recommendation that you plan between 1 year and 8 months and then you reserve, 8 to 7? Do you have a recommendation, and or do you give a resource to your clients as far as that?
Right. So I think that for our services, it's never too soon, because then we can even start building a timeline of when it's appropriate or when you need to be booking and reaching out to certain vendors. And just how crazy the industry is at the moment, how busy vendors. It's nice that we have the time. So if I'm working with a bride for next fall of 22, I love that because they have the time now to research and to do their due diligence on different catering companies, do different tastings, and that way they know exactly who they want to work with. And then we go from there. So we schedule it out based on that level of, okay, you need to start booking. You look at a venue now because a year out, things are booked. And so we really just work on that timeline leading up to the date. And so I'd say at least a year is nice to have.
Okay.
But we can do it whatever time.
When do you have to make the decision though? Like, obviously you're working with different people in different timelines, but if you had like you were to make a recommendation, like everything was open and you were making the recommendation, when would you have all of your vendors chosen by? And when do you get into the like for us, it's we provide them with all the planning tools and client area, and we share them with you too. But we meet with them about 8 weeks before. That's usually what we have found is the sweet spot when decisions are made, but not all decisions are made. Sometimes we have clients that want to meet earlier, and when we meet earlier with them again, I don't want to say that it's not a productive meeting, because any meeting where you get to meet with your vendor and talk over things is a good thing. People do that, but we're not making any decisions. So we usually have to meet again, and at that point we're kind of going over the same ground that we went over. So when should you start to do those things as far as making like hardcore decision? We're not planning anymore, because don't people get into the eternal planning? I mean, where they can't decide on things.
Yeah. I think I like to have all vendors secured if we can, at least 6 months out. And that still gives you plenty of time and wiggle room for making those decisions, but not having too much time that you're going to ponder over too much. Obviously, the sooner, 6 to 8 months. Things like venues, you're going to need to secure before that. Most likely, just as venues book very quickly and further out than other vendors, but that's kind of what I try to do. And then obviously, once we get closer, like you said, you do the finer details about a month or so out.
Okay. Yeah. And we book some, especially like the dates that have some cadence to them. I was just speaking to a client the other day that was booking on a day, and I was like, this is in 2022 and we're like completely booked for this day, and I don't know why. And it was something about the way that the date landed, like it created some, and so, but we book probably about a year in advance, most of our services, and we'd have people that, fill in the blanks and things like that. But what order do you
find in advance would be nice?
Yeah. And again, we don't do any, I mean, we provide them with all the planning tools, and then they just, we meet with them again 8 weeks before. But what is there an order that you suggest? Like, pick my numbers?
Obviously, it's, you need your venue first, because that's going to be your big, select your date, your location. And then I'd say your next big ones are going to be your photographer, because then you can start taking your engagement photos for your save the dates. And that's great. I love doing that with your photographer, because then you really get to know them and their personality, their style, and you're more comfortable as well on the wedding day with them. And then, it's all kind of, there's not a certain order. It just all depends. Definitely catering and DJ are going to be right up there too. With catering, because you have those special meetings with each vendor. Catering and your tastings, the DJ, you guys keep it alive. You keep the party going, the night running smooth, and you do what I can't do. I don't get on that mic. Stay behind the scenes.
It's funny. We always say when we're talking about when we're recommending Blush and Bloom, and we're like, they do things that we don't do, but we do things that they can't do because we have a play button and a microphone. And so when it comes to the announcements and the first dances and stuff like that, so I think that's the reason that we work together so well. But
yeah, I get asked if they're like, "Can you make this announcement or can you do this?" I go, "No, you do not want me to." At all. I'd get up there and I'd just be like, "Excuse me."
Speaking of announcements, it's funny because I've been doing this for a very long time. I didn't really realize until I started looking into doing this podcast how many years of experience I have. And you and I met, I want to say at the Hilton 6 years ago.
Either there or Bright State, I think. One of those.
Was it?
Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a long time ago.
It might have been the Hilton, yeah. Actually, it might have been there.
It was the after party at the Hilton.
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. I remember most of that after party.
You're right. Do you remember it?
But even with as much time as I have, I still pause on the microphone before I talk, especially the very first time. Once you get into the groove for the very first time, we were at the steam plant last week, and Chris was making fun of me, one of our DJs, because I went over to the corner and I was getting ready to make my first announcement, and I went, and he was laughing. He was like, just say it, Sean. It's gonna be fine. And,
right.
Kind of laughing at me, like, I can't believe you still get, it's once it goes out.
Yeah.
So that first time it's got to be important.
I'm not good on the fly like you guys are. I wouldn't be a very good DJ at
all. One of the things too that impresses me about Blush and Bloom and about you and all your team is when you say that we're good on the fly. I think one of the most important things about hiring a professional is something that you can't really put a price tag on, and that is their demeanor when something is needed and something goes wrong. Every time we have been in a situation where we've had to make adjustments to the timeline, you and your staff have always been that rock. And I think people need that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When there's changes?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we make every transition as seamless as possible. And if something comes up that, we need to do this change, we're going right into the first dance. We're not going into dinner first. That's something we come work with you guys, say, hey, let's be prepared. Are you ready to go? And we just make sure the photographer's on the same page. We ensure that no matter what happens, if we need to make any changes, it's no problem at all. We just want to take a moment first and make sure that everybody's aware, vendor-wise, but that you're all ready and prepared too. And it's something easily communicated to us from the couple or parents, whoever wants to let us know, hey, we're making a slight change. It's not a problem. We make it work.
Who do you think does that when we're not there? You ever wonder that? You ever wonder at the...
Who's running around like we do? Yeah.
And not having the experience and not having the vendor contacts. How does it? I wonder sometimes how it ever gets done.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And we've been involved in events where we were like just doing a live stream or just doing an audio support where we weren't really. And I've wanted to step in. Can we're behind schedule. Why are we behind schedule? We need to, and there was a it was a huge live stream. So we had like 3 cameras going and 2 sound operators and 1 Zoom operator and 1 stream. So it was like a large crew there, and everybody was looking at me, and I'm like, it's not our wedding. I mean, we're recording. What do you want to do?
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, but, that's great because we try to keep things flowing smooth as much as we can. And if we do run behind, that's something that we communicate. Again, we're that point of contact, that communication, like rock for everybody that day. If something happens, we make sure that things transition smooth, or if we're running a few minutes behind, we just make it work, but we just make sure that everybody's aware that we're ready to go when couple's ready to go.
Yeah. But I think it's going back to what I said in the beginning. I think it's more than that, because we had a DJ an MC that used to work for us. His name is Calvin, and Calvin was a very jovial guy. He was very happy, but when something was wrong, he still had that jovial look on his. He always looked happy, and so couples kind of they didn't react so well to that sometimes, because it was something that don't you understand, this is something that, and I think that's what you guys do well. And again, something that you can't really quantify. When something happens, it's a demeanor of the person that's telling you, like, no, we've already talked to your vendors and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to move this, and we've got it taken care of. And that solace that you get as a client when you hear those things, you can't quantify that. It's just, that's where it's at. You know what I mean? That's
we want, our goal is for them to have the best day ever. If something comes up, we run with it. We make sure things are taken care of. If something even pops up that the bride and groom doesn't know about, then we just fix it and we keep going. Again, it's, it's nothing's gonna be too crazy. We just figure it out. And we work with every great vendor that we work, that we work alongside, and together we always make something happen to where it's seamless still. And that way we want the bride to just have full trust in us and their vendor partners that we can make that happen.
So how do you choose vendor partners? Where does your recommendation base come from when it comes to the vendors that you want people to have and things like that?
So definitely we start with couples and understand what they're looking for. What's their budget? What style for each different vendor are they looking for? And then our main recommendations are going to come from vendors that we've worked with that we know do a great job, that we know really truly care about each couple and their special day. I'm not going to recommend somebody that comes in and goes and sits out back for an hour and doesn't do anything. That makes my job harder. So really, we want to make sure that it's a great fit for our couples, but yet we also, and we want to make sure it's a great vendor partner that we fully trust and know that they do a great job and they're a great team. So say something comes up, we know we can go to them and trust in each other to really make the night happen. So that's really what we do. And of course, if they're looking for somebody else that we have, or they have a vendor that they're like, work with so-and-so, and we haven't worked with them, that's fantastic too, because we love to work with new vendors as well. And we will communicate with that vendor up front and just say, hey, it's nice to meet you. I'd love to come, chat either virtually or in person. Let's talk through this wedding and the details, just so we get to know that vendor too before the day of. So either way, we can work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you in a vendor clique? Are you one of those vendor clicky? We get, sometimes people will say that to us, like, this person recommends you and this person recommends you. You guys must be in a clique together. Or you must be like paying each other or something like that. And I don't think they realize it's just hours in the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just, there's no cliques. It's just, we know who we've worked with that does a great job, and there's no click about it. It's just, they're fantastic. That's why we like to work with them. But like I said, if somebody wants to work with a certain vendor that we've never worked with before, that's fantastic too, because that way we learn new people in the industry that we've never worked with, and can, be a part of something else and know other people that are out there too. And that's how we grow as well.
Have you ever had anybody though that I don't want to say couldn't work with, but anybody that was difficult? How do you handle difficult vendors? You guys have to deal with the vendors in a more long-term, intimate way than what most people do. If we run into a catering captain that's just not on the ball, I mean, we have a couple interactions with them, and that's pretty much it. How do you guys deal with people that could be better?
Well, we again, we try to pre-plan as much as we can and communicate. However, that's not always an option. So on the day, we try to meet with them very upfront and say, okay, here's what our plan is. Let's talk really briefly and go over the game plan for the evening. And nothing's ever going to be perfect every single time.
Okay.
So if we have to, we're there for the couple 100%. If somebody's dropping the ball, we just do it. We try to pick up the slack where we can. Obviously, I'm not standing behind a DJ booth and I'm not a florist.
Or talking on the microphone. We've already established that.
No, not at all. No. But if a bartender gets slammed behind a bar they weren't prepared for, 200 really heavy, we're going to step in and help, clear some tables or whatever we can do just on our side to make sure things run smooth. So we kind of go with the flow, and if something pops up, we're there to handle it. Like I said, we've jumped in and we've cleared tables, bus tables, taken out trash. We're not afraid of anything, just to make sure that everything runs smooth and the couples don't notice any difference at all. We're just there to help.
I can't say that we have not worked with some wedding planners that could have been better.
And you know what? My Lisa, who helps me, is fantastic too. She's not scared of getting involved in something as well. If I've been slugging trash, I've taken down some towers or put some flower pieces together. But yeah, we get in there and we do the work.
Well, we because we work well together, we have never had any issues with Blush and Bloom at all. But there are some wedding planners that won't allow the professionals to do what the professionals were hired to do, and the services that the couple had hired them to do.
Right.
And like when it comes to like the first dance and the transition to the family dances and stuff, that we get with the oncoming parent, and we send them in at the right time because we have a radio to the DJ, and we know 30 seconds comes and we're sending him in. And not to say that we haven't gone to you and said, I have no idea who the dad is, or I didn't pay attention who mom was in the ceremony, because again, we don't deal with them as intimately as you do, and that's why we work so well together. But we have been told before by wedding planners we are not allowed to speak to the client, and it is crazy. But it goes back to what you were saying about the importance of hiring a professional and a vendor that really knows and works with people in the industry. And you just can't, it's hard to tell people that. It's hard to tell people that have seen or heard good things about someone, no, that person is going to overstep their bounds and they are going to that affect X, Y, Z. And so, like I said, I'm glad that you don't have any stories to share about vendors, but there's been several times.
We try to be ahead of it. We're not always ahead of it, so we roll with that. However, we're very, very, we love working with you guys and other great vendors. We know how we work together, and we know that you guys are fantastic. And when you say, if you need a name, we have the names, but we're so comfortable that we know that you're going to talk to mom and dad, say, hey, are you ready for this? That you speak with the bridal party to make sure everything's ready to go for their intros. And we're there to help open doors or whatever we need to do. But that's what's fantastic. I always suggest working with professionals. It just makes the whole day smoother, easier, and especially when it comes to a DJ, because truly you guys are running the evening and keeping it going.
And maybe it's because we've been in the industry for a very long time and we've run across, I know that I think at least, I think sometimes for us vendors, we kind of get into a tunnel vision of what, we see a certain part of the wedding, we see a certain part of every vendor, and you see a different part. But sometimes I think what we do as DJs is a little different than just coming and playing music. And I think that sometimes, I believe 99.9% of the people enjoy it and we work well, but I think there's that 1% that it just doesn't click with them, that the DJ is doing anything behind the DJ booth, and no, you should just stay back there and play music and shut up. And so I think that's where we've ran into our, differences.
No, you guys do so much. And it's hard because I know you guys do so much work. And then some people will ask me, like, well, my DJ runs the night, so why do I need you? Like, they have a timeline. Why do I need your services? And then again, they don't realize or think how much we work together to make that day and evening run smooth. So we're there pre-planning. We put in so much work leading up to the day to ensure every vendor is ready, every detail is taken care of and covered. We're, just every little detail, as far as your guest chairs, your linen colors, your place settings. And then when it comes to that day, we're there. I mean, it's not a 4-hour job. We're pretty much there all day long, from setup to tear down, making sure that everything is covered, all the vendors are coming in properly, set up correctly where they need to be. And if there's any kind of troubleshooting that pops up, we're that person that everybody goes to.
It's got to be hard, though, to really sell that, isn't it? I mean, I feel like every wedding should have a wedding planner or an event planner. And, this is not to speak ill of anyone who is an event captain or someone who is there to help the day run as far as the venue goes, because I know venues have started kind of hiring planners to be able to help on the day of. But that's different than, and I know those people do that also, but that's different than a full service wedding planner. How do you sell that to someone? I don't mean sell negatively. I just mean like, how do you know the value?
So there's definitely a difference. And we love working with those venue coordinators because they know the venue. If something pops up that we need, there's the bathroom's out of toilet paper, or where's a mop so we can clean this up. But that's why we love having somebody to go to work alongside, because they know
where's
that
the light switch?
Yeah. How do I turn this air on in here? Yeah. Right. No, we love having somebody because we don't know the venue in and out like they do. But yet, like, they aren't there as much as we are leading up to the wedding. They might have a day of person to help set up your tables. However, they're not there 6 to 8 months down the road when you're needing decisions, help to choose colors, textures. How are we going to put all this stuff together? How am I going to bring my Pinterest board to life? So really, that's what we are for, and we're there every step of the way, leading up to it. And then, like I said, closer to that month of and the day of, we work really close with that person. And even leading up to the time, we're really open with communication with every vendor and with that venue coordinator too, just to make sure that we're respecting their property and we're running things how they would like it ran. And then we look to them for guidance as far as floor plans and what works best in that space, because they're there in that space all the time, whereas we're not in that one specific space every wedding. So we really look to each different vendor to bring those details to us and help us to make sure it's the best day and the best, how we want it to be set up. I'm not going to go into a venue, I want the floor plan, because it might not work very well in there. And I'm always open to help, like guidance and suggestions. And I think that's what's great, is that some planners might be set in their ways, like, no, this is how it goes. This is how I want it, but it's not how I want things. It's how the bride and the couple wants their day to go. And I think that's what, we really bring in, is that we just work alongside. We're there to help with whatever needs to be done.
Yeah. I think I do want to correct you on one thing, though, that you said that you wouldn't go in and say the floor plan is this. I believe you would if it was in the best interest of the client. And I think that's
Right.
important. I
Yeah.
think having input to that it's important. And I truly believe you guys would do that. And that's
Right.
the right thing to do. I mean, you don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I think sometimes you just got to stand up for your client and do the right thing. And you guys have always done that. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. If we're in the venue, we might look at it differently than the venue does, just like you said. So maybe our client really wants a certain head table set up in a certain way. So they might not have never done that. So then we might make that new suggestion of, oh, why don't we set it like this over here, and then rearrange a few things. So yeah, I definitely we do that, just to make sure that everything flows properly and how they want it done.
we, we, again, I'm not going to mention venues or anything here, but the photographer was Chelsea Hall. We were working with Chelsea.
Yeah, great.
And there was a cake table that was in a poor location for pictures. And we had asked the venue if we could move the cake table. And they were like, no. And we were like, just about a foot and a half the other direction. It couldn't be seen from everywhere. And they were like, no, you can't move it. And so they walked away, and Chelsea and I were like, we're going to move it.
I would move it. Sorry. No, I would move. I would be right there with Chelsea, moving it for her.
Yeah.
Again, we need to know what's best and what she sees. So yeah, no, we will move that.
I think that's what it's all about. I think when you choose a vendor team, meaning the clients or the captains, that we both knew that she was not going to be happy with where it was. We were not going to be able to get pictures. Therefore, we are going to move this table one way or the other, even if
you don't want a fire extinguisher right behind your cake, so or something like that. So we're obviously going to move it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things that, again, and it just truly helps to hire the right people, because if it were a less experienced, less confident photographer, we wouldn't have had that backing. And therefore we lose. And then when we lose, the client loses, because the team falls apart. So
yeah. And that's what's great. And that's, again, going back to there's no vendor clicks, but if we've worked together, we know how we work. And even if it's somebody new, that's why I like to get to know them beforehand, because we ultimately want what's best for the couple. So if we need to move a table, we're going to move a table. Or if we need to adjust a floor plan to something different, we absolutely will go back and forth with that venue coordinator to make sure it's what the bride and the couple want.
And how do you say, that's one of those things that one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast was that reason right there. I can't tell you the last time that I told that story, but it's so important, and it really just highlights, when we make recommendations, what's behind that recommendation. There's a pay to play. There are certain people out there that will pay to play. If you go to a place and they're like, we recommend so and so and so and so, they have paid money to make those recommendations. That hurts my heart. It really just eats at me. That is. We make our recommendations off of the things that we just talked about being on the vendor team, the team for the client, and nothing else. And if it's like the Survivor. I don't watch Survivor, but it was like you get voted off the island. If you're no longer on the team, then you get voted off the island. So maybe we are in a clique, but it's if you consider that. But we're not going to work with people that don't work with us and don't work for our clients. So
and I agree. It's all based on going to work the best for our clients, and not sit outside and hang out, or that's why I like working with you guys, because you help keep things flowing. Like, I don't need to be on top of a DJ saying, hey, it's time for this, let's move on. I don't need to be that person. Like, they should be like, okay, I'll be there to say, yeah, we're ready for the cake cutting, we're ready for the dances, and then you guys just take it. But
you keep saying sitting outside. I feel like you have a story somewhere that you just don't want to talk about.
We're trying to pull a few people in. Just to keep things moving. Yeah. Go on some searches.
So, when it comes to choosing the vendor, I mean, obviously you make the recommendations and you talk to them, but
Mm-hmm.
what do you, what's the, what's the questions that you ask? And you know, when we talk to a client, we have gone the extra mile and went and like Googled questions to ask a DJ. And so we cover all of those questions that the
Right.
Knot and the Wedding Wire has told people to ask, but I don't feel like they're the best questions. I mean, I cover them because people
Right.
have read it. What's your recommendations for choosing vendors when you have a client that you know is going to meet with someone? What?
Mm-hmm. So it all is based on each vendor. So when we begin to talk about a venue, my first question is, what's your style? What type of venue do you see yourself getting married in? Do you want that barn wedding? Do you want, a downtown setting, or what, how do you feel your vibe being and that overall atmosphere? So then from that, we say, okay, I think these venues would be a fantastic suggestion based on what you're looking for. Um, and then from there, we dive in deeper as far as the overall, and then what's your budget? Then we go into what's all included and all the details. So what's more important to you? The same with how we do that with catering. What style of cuisine would you like? Do you want a buffet? Do you want to have a really fun food station? Or how do you see that evening going for your food service? And then based on what they're looking for and their style, just knowing different caterers, that's what's great too, working with a planner, is knowing so many different vendors that we can make good suggestions based on what they're looking for. Style of service, their food style, their taste. And then again, DJ, how do you want the night to go? Do you want somebody that's going to, that's really going to run the evening, you guys can really do everything. You run it, you can have any style, you can keep the party alive. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So really just those specific questions. Yeah. And the same with flowers. There's multiple florists, but we work with certain vendors that we know just really are so creative. When they really want some really cool floral pieces on an arbor, or for your ceremony, or behind the sweetheart table for your, some really nice, awesome centerpieces, we know who to go to that are so creative with flowers and centerpieces that we fully trust our couples going to them. And I just execute that on the day of. It's amazing. So our biggest thing is just really talking with each couple. What are you looking for? We look at pictures, images of just their style, their inspiration, and that helps us to make those suggestions based on what we think would be best for them.
So, a couple things there. You had talked about kind of sending people out to look for to match what they're looking for, but how do you differentiate between a service and a product when it comes to how someone is interviewing or how someone is deciding on a vendor? Like, if you go to and this blends in a little bit. If you have if you're talking about centerpieces and you have a florist, and the florist goes, I'm going to deliver 15 of these centerpieces, and Jenna and her crew are going to set them on the table. That's kind of a product, baseline product. And then you have like a caterer, which I think is in the middle really, because when we work with caterers, the food, the presentation, the experience, as elite catering would say, is an important thing. But you also have that service side of catering that I think that people may overlook. And how do you decide? I mean, food's great, but how are their service going to be? And then on into DJ, where we don't have a product at all, but we are all service. Is there specific questions that you ask individuals based off a product, based off of a service? And it's got to be different, right? I mean, when people are deciding on them.
Yeah. Obviously we prefer to always suggest and recommend vendors that are fantastic with service no matter what. Everybody has their own style. We might have a different style than other planners. So it's all really based on each couple's personal preference. However, I think it's very important, and I stress this when asking these questions, is what style of service are you looking for? Do you want to ensure that your catering company is full service? They are there for setup, service, cleanup through the whole evening, that they have a fantastic display. They're super creative with how they're going to put out your cake and your cupcakes. Little details like that. And we can help make those recommendations on, just what they're looking for. The same with flowers. Like, yes, they have the product of the flowers. However, we want to work with florists that bring that creativity into it and can really bring that couple's vision to life. And that's what's important to us, is knowing and trusting those vendors can do that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, so if it's a bride that wants to, do all her flowers herself, and we just need to place them on the tables, that's fantastic. We can make a certain suggestion as to who to, work with for that, just to get the flowers. And it all comes back to what are you looking for, and then what level of service are you wanting to be provided for that specific vendor.
Because we make a lot of our recommendations based off of the service. With the way that we look at it is to say that the product is the product. You can see the product and know if you like the product or not. I am going to give you my personal recommendation and vouch for their service because I have seen them work at a wedding and things like that. And so I think that's really how we differentiate it when it comes to our recommendations based off, when it comes to photographers, for instance. We tell people, I can't tell you whether you're going to like this photographer over this photographer, but I can tell you that you are going to like this person and the way that they work. And I know you share an office with Sarah Badcock, or you guys are in the same building. And so I can tell you that Sarah is a phenomenal person and that she will be great at the wedding. And then you can make the decision on whether you like her pictures over Nick or over Chuck or whoever else. And so, but I feel like that's hard to the recommendation is only as good as the individual, and if they don't know me anymore, they know them.
Right. Yeah, and that's why and the photography is tough because there's certain photographers, but they all have different styles. So I can say, here's 4 different photographers that I know are fantastic. They're super sweet, great to work with. They do amazing work, but they have a different style of photography. And that's all based on that couple as far as what style they want. But at least I know that person individually is a great person, that they work fantastic. And they're just great for that whole event. Yeah.
And I agree with you on the recommendation for the individuals too, because they're, even when it comes to weddings, and I think that what you had said that, we are good for a lot of weddings, and we are, but we are not good for weddings that have like 25 or 30 people in them, or like backyard barbecues or things like that, things that normally wouldn't have a full service planner in them either. So that's the reason why we always work together. But we just have too much planning into something like that. someone just wants us to come and play music. And I'm calling them every day, like, have you done your planning form yet? How's your, have you done your music genre form yet? They're like, shut up, just play music. And so
just play music. Yeah. And that's, because there are people that want to just, it's fine for, like you said, a lot of people are now doing backyard small weddings, which is great. And they're super fun and personable and intimate. And those you may not need a full service DJ, but it just all varies on what style of wedding, the size, and what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you talked about, the vendors, you kind of hit on budget a little bit, and how does budget play? I read that everybody blows their budget out. And it's something that people set, and then you might as well put another 0 on the end of it. but how do you, what's your recommendations for budget with clients, and how that works, and what realistic expectations do you have?
Yeah. So we've done pretty well sticking within budgets, to be honest. That we sit down at the very beginning and we're like, hey, what are you looking like? Where are we at with our budget? And then we know automatically we're going to allocate most of the budget to your venue and your food and beverage. And then from there, we kind of talk through, okay, what's the most important to you? What's very special that you really just want to have a huge floral display that you're like, floral is my most, like I really want a lot of flowers. So I'm not giving on that. We kind of see what's important. And then from there, we, go and we get, work with different vendors based on what they're looking for, get a quote. So we can say, okay, well, maybe I can scale back and get a third of those flowers versus the full thing. Or, maybe I don't need that certain uplighting. Just different pieces that we can kind of play with in order to stick within the budget. And then maybe come closer to the day, a lot of times they'll be like, you know what, we found a little bit more money, that let's go ahead and add that uplighting on, or let's go ahead and add that extra floral piece, or whatever it might be. But we always kind of based off what's the most important, or where do you want to put more of your money versus, okay, where could we save a little bit? And we kind of weigh our options and talking with each vendor is, okay, well, how much is a plated meal versus a buffet, or seeing where we can kind of play with the budget.
Kind of sounds like kind of sounds like that goes back to something we were talking about earlier when it comes to when to hire a planner. Sounds like the experiences that we're talking about people blowing their budget out, are people that didn't have a planner to talk to in the beginning to have a realistic expectation and real world experience to say, if you want this flower arrangement, it is going to cost you about this much money, and where does this lay? And so that might be a testament to the reason why you stay on budget more than other people who blow their budget out, because from the very beginning you're setting them up for success with realistic expectations and estimates when it comes to how long you've been in the industry and knowing how much things cost and things like that.
Right. And again, having and building those relationships with different vendors, you kind of have an idea of where budget will be at. So you can kind of give a rough estimate of, okay, about what it'll cost. And then also knowing that we work with these vendors so well, that, hey, okay, we're working with this within this certain budget. How can we make this work? Or what's best? Can we substitute, can we maybe not do 12 lights, but let's do 6 and still have that grand effect? Or, just how can we make this work on a certain budget? And that's nice, because then having that relationship, even with you guys, that I can say, hey, we're on a tight budget. What's our best options to really still bring the party to life or happen?
And we understand that we are not the most inexpensive entertainment option out there. And so, and that's something to have an expectation of, that some people don't know, that you would help them out with and say, what is your budget? And if it's not something that is within our entertainment, packages, then unfortunately we can't use Legacy, but let's use, these other people that we recommend. So I think that's again, it goes back to, I think, choosing a planner. That's another great reason of why to hire a planner, I think. Because I couldn't imagine going and getting everybody.
Oh, it's a lot. And that's why I stress too, just how much we put in the pre-planning, leading up to it. Even if you're like, well, I only need a day of, but truly when we sit and explain to them what all we do and the services that we help with, we're doing a lot more than just that day of, and a lot more time leading up to it, just with the research, with the vendor communication, details, and the decor. We take care of a lot of that. It's a lot of hours put in.
It's not till you start to like in your mind go, man, we do a lot.
We do. Yeah, we have a lot of long nights. Yeah.
There's those things like, in the industry, you have, again, your tunnel vision to your own industry. So there has been like blogs that'll put out like, this is how much time your DJ should be spending. And it's like preparation and music stuff, and then client forms, and then preparing the client forms, and then talking
Yeah.
with the vendors, and so you like go down all this, and I look at it and I think that's a lot, but
Yeah.
then I think clients really don't care, do they? I mean, do they really? I mean, I know I'm doing that. Don't they just care about the outcome? Don't they just
Right.
care what their wedding is? And
Right.
so I've never shared anything like that because I thought that like, nope, nobody wants a list of everything a DJ does.
Well,
How boring.
and it's right, and it's even hard for us to explain. Like when we do, a consultation, we really try to understand where are they at within the planning process and what are they looking for. And the thing is, once we get talking about all the services that we provide and what we do, we bring up points like, oh wow, I need you for that. Like we need help with that, or I didn't even think of those things. So it's nice like to have I'll get an email inquiry, but I love to have at least a phone conversation just to really talk with every couple and truly understand what they're looking for and how we can help and bring that to them and bring our services on board.
And you kind of have to, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
have to meet with someone before you give them a quote because
Yeah.
you will never know where they're at and where they want to go until you meet with them. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they might think I just need your event management services. However, once we start talking and we get into what's included with that, but then, okay, but we get into who's doing all this pre-work and this planning and these details, then we really are like, no, you're going to need a little bit more help and more services up front leading all the way up to that time, which is great. And we love that because we like to be more involved. So that way, we fully are by their side the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes it a great and a fun experience for them and for us. And to really get to know every couple personally is really fun. Because, I mean, for you guys too, it's so great to just walk in and you see that smile and just the excitement on everything is finally coming together. That's awesome.
I was just thinking about my next question was going to be around like any gotcha questions that you have that you pass on to your clients. Like you should ask the DJ this, or you should ask your florist this, like someone that you have never worked with, of course, not someone that you know. And that I'm not saying you would sabotage people that you know, but you probably will be able to take a question that someone asked you and then pass it on down to like you should ask this client that question. Do you have any of those? Are there any like really good questions that someone has asked you that you were like, that's a really
Yeah.
you should ask every vendor that because that.
Right?
And any questions like that?
I don't know. There's none that I really like pop out. But you know what's still like what's crazy is even something as simple and I mean, granted, working with all the caterers that we work with, they're all fantastic. But if one comes up that we've never worked with, I'm like, make sure that they're going to like ask them, like, are they staying all night? Is somebody there to help clean up your tables all night and bus all the tables? And they're like, oh, I don't do that. Yes, you need to make sure that that's part of their services. The little things that you just don't, you assume that people will do, but unless if you are in it and I've experienced it, we need to make sure that every vendor covers what they're supposed to do. And if you're not used to it or you don't know, then you won't know to ask these questions.
I love that. That actually explains kind of a point of view. I've always wondered why people don't ask the hard questions, but maybe what you just said is the base of that, which is there are so many basic questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like we get questions all the time, like, do you take breaks? And I'm like, no, we don't. I mean, first off, there's two of us. So why, if one person takes a break or has to go to the bathroom, the other person would take over. But I just thought in my mind, like, do DJs take breaks? I mean, do DJs just stop the music and go to the bathroom or go outside or
outside?
But so maybe and like with the caterer, any caterer that we would recommend, like you said, would bust tables. I mean, or would at least bring it up to the client and go, who do you have to bust tables? And this is our cost. And if you choose not to, but that's why people don't ask difficult questions. I mean, Do you think that's why? I'm an over thinker when it comes to questions. So, you know, I think people should ask questions like they do when they're in a job interview.
Right. But sometimes it's just, you get, I mean, and I do too. We get, if it's something you're not familiar with and you just get caught up in the moment and you're so excited, you just don't think of those specific questions and into those really nitty gritty details as to who's doing these things and whom it's going to happen. But we need to cover every detail, and that's something that we do. And we will even go to each vendor and make sure that things are getting covered, that they're doing what all is supposed to be done by each team. We don't want to assume anything because then we're going to be stuck doing the
work. You know what assume means.
Yeah.
I had.
And that's what's nice. It's just having us to bounce that off of and making sure that we triple check everything, and that you might have a contract, but you still need to ask these questions to ensure that every detail's covered of who's doing what and when. And that's things that we include even in our timeline. So we know who's bringing what in, where is this going, when are they picking it up, if it needs to be moved, who's moving it, every little detail.
I never thought about that either for planners. So, when we're working with someone that we know, there is a level of expectation that we start at, and therefore we only need to ask those top questions to be able to complete the picture, the overview, how the event's going to go. I guess if you're starting with someone who you have never met or don't know or are not established in the industry, I don't want to say are not professionals, because just because someone's not, a 20-year veteran doesn't mean that they don't do a good job. But you have to make sure that all the base stuff, like are they going to take the trash out? Are they going to do stuff? Which that's
simple things,
with people that you already know, and that's got to change your planning significantly from event to event.
And we are not pushy everything at all. We address it professionally and just make sure, like, hey, we just want to cover all of our bases, and ensure that everything's being taken care of, so that when we get asked of who's doing something, that we know the answer and we know things are getting taken care of. So we're not there to tell people what to do. We do everything, but we just pre-plan and know who's taking care of the respective item.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We had, I think some of the questions that I heard that were the best was, and do you do wedding shows? I don't know if I've seen you at wedding shows or not. Do you?
Yeah.
I always think wedding shows are missed opportunities that you could really, if you had a good set of questions, you could go around and watch people squirm all day. Because most of the time
we did time one, and it was fun because we had couples come in, and I was like, and we were next to Sarah. I'm like, all right, let's go ask these questions, or let's just because we know her, we can do that. Or little things like that, like just all right, go over to this booth, go talk to them, and ask these, but it's fun.
That's right. You guys were at the end of the aisle, right? At prime time?
Yeah.
I had a vacation scheduled, so I wasn't there, but I set up speakers, and I remember setting the speakers and the wires. Like, Sarah gonna be so mad at me.
You have been it all day.
But I think it's like missed opportunity, because most of the time when couples come up and ask us things at wedding shows, I don't want to say they don't know what to ask, but they just walk up like, okay, go. And I feel, we went and bought my son a bike a couple weeks ago. There's a bike shortage, by the way. I don't know if you know that or not, but if you're looking for a bike, it's really hard to find one. But
anything.
I asked 15 or 20 like hard hitting questions, like why should I buy this bike from you? What do I get when I buy this bike from you in comparison to the shop down the street? And what are you going to give me that they're not going to give me? And why is your price higher than this price? And why does it make it worth my while? And I feel like if I'm doing that for my son's bike, ooh, and you could tell that I didn't go to like Kmart or Kmart. I'm totally aging myself now.
Okay.
Walmart or anything like
Yeah.
that. We went to bike shops, but still,
Yeah.
I feel like those questions should be asked. I
Mhm.
really do, especially when you're spending as much money as you are on your wedding. Um,
Right.
and when they're
And
not,
that's the same with services. So yeah, because I mean, I get it. Some couples are like, well, why, I'm not going to, I can find somebody that's less expensive, but yet, again, I don't know how everybody works, but our level of service that we provide is unreal. I mean, we do anything and everything. We're working so hard all the way up leading to the day and that day of. And it's just, when we get to that end of the day, couples are like, now we understand. It's not, you just don't know until you go through it. The same with, because we don't have a product, it's not like we have a product that we're, giving as a service.
yeah,
But,
I almost wish that we could get couples to the place where when we're done with a planning meeting,
yeah,
you see that like okay,
right.
I wish we could transport that feeling to the very beginning to go,
Mhm.
if you choose us, you will feel the and we
Yeah,
try, but there's just
yeah, yeah. As best as we can, the consultations, just like, we can do all this for you. We'll take care of that. We are here 100%. If you're up at 3 a.m. and you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to go with burgundy or mauve, or what color pink do I want? We're there. And I mean, don't call me at 3 a.m., but we can help with those questions. Yeah.
what is the difference, wedding planner and a decorator, I believe is the word I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Like, are those decisions, do you do all of that, or do you have someone that helps you with that? How does that work?
Yeah, so I love working with decorators. They are so creative. There's just, as far as, okay, taking a space and what can we do with this space? How can we bring this vision to life? And they're the ones, like, I mean, they're the professionals that come in and do, like, get up on the heavy, do the draping, do the specialty, decorating. That's not, we are more behind this. We will coordinate all that for the couple. We'll say, no, this company is going to be your best option. They're fantastic decorating. They're creative. They can just bring it to life and make it amazing. So I never tell a client that I'm going to come in and can fully just design this space and redo everything. It takes a team effort to do all that. Definitely. We can absolutely bring in inspiration. We can bounce ideas around and see what's going to be best, and then see who's that's how we help choose vendors of who's going to help bring this together with us. So it takes a village to really bring a whole vision to life.
Takes a team. Come on, you're not going with my analogy.
Yeah, it takes a team. Yes. But we can definitely make suggestions. We can, help with that design process too. But I never try to fully sell that we are some big designer, because we can help it. We love working with decorators. Yeah.
So next week's podcast is going to be with Claiborne Productions.
Yeah.
We have a couple wedding shows coming up, so let's talk about wedding show. If you have a client and they're going to a wedding show, what is your recommendation for them? What's your, do you have a checklist, or how do you recommend they go through? Because the reason that I wanted to talk to Tracy and someone from Claiborne, I'm not sure if it's going to be Tracy or not, but I think sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes it's like, I mean, the cake's good. The food's good. But I think sometimes for couples, they walk in and it's like, wow, I'm getting we call them the clipboard brigade, people who are like shoving clipboards in your face and trying to
Right.
What's your recommendation for couples?
I always say go in with some kind of plan, knowing, okay, these are the certain vendors that we're looking for. So that means there's going to be all kinds of vendors, and even ones that don't always relate to weddings. But if you're going in specifically looking for certain vendors, just make sure that you go in and you have your list of questions so you can compare each one and you really get to know each different vendor. So who's going to fit your personality the best and bring, for your day. You might meet somebody like that you didn't even realize, oh my gosh, they offer these services. This is fantastic. Just take it all in. And then at the end of the day, you're going to want to go home and just decompress and, lay everything out. It is very overwhelming. Even as a vendor, it's overwhelming. But that's the best suggestion. So yeah, take your notes, go in with somewhat of a plan if you need certain vendors. But
how do you remember vendor? I hear stories that people forget who they spoke to. Like it's you have this big bag of stuff and you're like, I don't know, I thought this was this person, or
Mm-hmm. I'd say when you go in, definitely have some kind of a folder or notebook, which would be nice because you do get a big bag, and then you'll get lots of brochures and materials. And if there's somebody that really sticks out, you're like, oh, I really love this vendor, make sure, even if it's putting a star or writing a quick little note on their flyer, and if you have a folder, tuck it in, like on the left side, these are the ones I really want to pay attention to, and follow up with, just so that way you're organized leaving, not as overwhelming going home. You, like I said, if you have some specifics, once you're done talking to that vendor, step aside, just take a moment, write down like why you really like them, what did you want to follow up with, so that way and it's easier when you get home through and sort through everything.
Yeah. We've gone to a lot of digital stuff. We're trying to be, earth conscious when it comes to not printing a bunch of stuff that we don't need. And so we've gone to just cards, and then, cards and then card stocks and the only thing we have. But I get envious sometimes because I see people with these big folders. And we went to, this is a long time ago, it was at Miami Valley Gaming, but they had, it looked like something you got in college. It opened up and had multiple layers, and I thought, "Geez, me Christmas! How many trees are you killing?" But I feel sometimes like I'm not giving them enough. I need to I hope I made a good impression, because you're not going to remember me off of the little card that says legacy on it. So.
Well, and you know what? To be honest, so if I went to a bridal show and I had a huge folder full of papers, I'm not going to look through all of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to remember who I spoke to, and you have those personal interactions. So that's what's nice is, we're the same. I have a brochure that, kind of outlines our services. However, if I have a great conversation with somebody, I'm going to make note of their name, and we'll follow up. And the same with them. If they we really had a great connection with Jen and her team, we want to follow up with them too. So I think that's the most important thing as well, versus having a packet of information.
We all again, this is going to put an age on me, a date range, but back in the day, and in the event industry, in the DJ industry, in the entertainment industry, we don't always get along. There's a lot of headbutting, a lot of personality, and there was a friend of ours named Doug who owns Absolute DJs, and they always gave out bags, and so we would put our stuff in Doug's bag, and every time a client would do it, I was like, putting it in Doug's Absolute DJ's bag. And he's a great guy. I love him to death, but I just always you think that as a vendor when you're doing stuff like, hope they're going to remember me putting this little card in
their bag,
in somebody else's bag.
Yep.
I always wanted.
Yeah. There's always so many things that you can do that no matter what, you're like, oh, that's really cool. Why didn't I do that? But
yeah,
I do the same thing.
If Doug ever sees this, he'll laugh because we're friends in the industry. But I always thought I wanted to do it, but I don't want to be I don't want to be like that guy. You need a legacy bag. It was all the right tunes at the time. You need an all the right tunes bag, not an Absolute DJ's bag. So. Right.
That's funny.
All right. Well, anything else you would like to add, Jenna? It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I appreciate it so much. This is this went exactly the way that I wanted it to. So thank you for your honesty. Thank you for kind of branching with different topics. Anything else that you want to add? Anything else?
No, it was great just talking through different, topics and our services, because it's a tough industry, just what we do, because a lot of people don't understand that. So it's great to get on to really explain how much work we truly do and the importance of having a planner. At any point in the process of planning, we can jump in, but it's great to just be involved and help with everything needed.
And I think the hard thing that we have too, when we talk about our services, and again, to reiterate this again, we do not do what you do. So while it's similar in the entertainment, like if we're not there, I understand you have to pick up where we're not there for the other DJs. But when you talk about what we do, it's great to have us there, but it's really imperative to have us there when things are not going the way that they're supposed to. And it's hard. You don't want to say that to a couple, like, we're going to plan this, we're going to do our very best, and then something's going to change. It's going to, the food's going to be a little bit later or a little bit earlier, or traffic is going to happen, or, and those type of incidents are where you really need the planner, where you really need that person that just takes charge and just, gets you right back on schedule and coordinates everything. And I think that's difficult. And I think that's where we struggle, and probably something that you don't want to bring up either. But I think that's really the highlight of having a planner is when things have been planned to their finest degree and still something happens.
It always
you have someone there to save the day again. And that's the reason why.
Super late, but we're there for you. Well, we're excited. Yeah, I appreciate you letting us come on tonight.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to be doing this every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And I'm sure as things change, we'll have Jena back on as we talk to additional people. And the reason that we wanted to start with Jena was because you're a wedding planner. So, if we talk to a photographer, we're going to be specifically in the photo sphere, and then wedding planners have a wide berth. So probably have you on again to talk about things. And not to mention, I just love talking to you. So
it's fun.
Even though we're going to see each other several times here in the next couple upcoming events.
Yeah. You'll be sick of me.
We'll have some horror stories. I am definitely at one point, not in an important part, going to sneak outside just so I can say that I was the guy.
Just so I have to come find you outside. Yeah. I'll get on the microphone at that point and just announce that I need to find you.
All right, Jena. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.